Part 1. The Subject. When the classified government facility known as Orion East reported a loss of contact with Sector V, protocol required containment, evacuation, and destruction. But this time it was different. The subject that was presumed lost had sent a signal. After 2 years of absolute silence, that's when Operation Return was initiated in a desolate region of Colorado. Hidden beneath the cover of a decommissioned military testing site, the underground base still functioned. Equipment remained active, and someone or something had reached out. It was a 13-year-old girl, alive, uniged, carrying memories of what had taken place after the lab was sealed. But she spoke no words. She only stared into the cameras, blinking in Morse code. They are inside. Do not open. I am not me. The message landed on Colonel Wilkins' desk at 4:15 a.m., before dawn. The subject, known as V-13, was already secured in an observation chamber deep within Facility Nova. Tests were conducted. Blood was drawn. Brain activity was monitored. Nothing about her matched human baselines. Her body temperature remained stable at 30.2 degrees Celsius. Her heart rate, 12 beats per minute. Her neural activity, too high, multiple patterns firing simultaneously. Attempts to sedate her failed. Standard tranquilizers lost chemical stability in her bloodstream. Some compounds even became toxic to the medical staff when exposed to her cells. V-13 didn't speak, but every night at exactly 2:46 a.m., she stood in the center of the chamber, closed her eyes, and triggered something no machine could track. Within a 200-meter radius, all personnel fell into synchronized sleep and dreamed the same nightmare. A vast, empty chamber, filled with silent, motionless copies of themselves, watching. Each day, fewer staff remained. Some vanished. Others died. Stroke, suicide, cardiac arrest. The girl said nothing. But every night she drew spirals on the walls. Maps, lines, names, geometry that didn't follow earthly logic. On the 10th day, a guard named Bennett fired at her. 5 rounds. Head, chest, neck. She dropped. 42 seconds later, she stood back up. After that, the cameras went dark. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of Plattsville, 17-year-old Alex Grayson began to notice a strange pattern. The same girl from his dreams appeared nightly, reaching for him silently. Every time she did, someone in the town disappeared. He didn't know he was part of something, that his DNA was engineered, that he was born from Project Sleeping Code, a program designed to seed dormant hybrids into the general population, children who would only activate in response to a global breach. No one knew the breach had already happened. By day 21, contact with Nova was lost, but the signal had escaped. Broadcasts began leaking through civilian frequencies. People across the country started reporting identical dreams. Some heard voices. Others drew the same spiral patterns on walls, floors, even on their skin. Alex started seeing shadows where people used to be. His friends looked the same, talked the same, but he felt they weren't real anymore. Some disappeared and came back unchanged. Others never returned, but their copies did. V-13 left the facility without force. The doors opened as she walked. Cameras cut to static. People within a kilometer radius lost an hour of memory. Some lost all memory permanently. She walked toward the city, slowly, barefoot, one step at a time. Behind her came the hollow ones, the watchers, those who never breathed, those who stood and stared. Each time she passed a person, they joined her silently, as if absorbed into a wave. Not dead, not alive, just rewritten. The world hadn't realized the threat yet, but in a remote house, a 12-year-old girl named Mira, who had never seen TV, never used the internet, began drawing massive figures on the walls, creatures with blank faces and infinite eyes. When her parents asked what they were, she handed them a paper. On it were 4 words. She is here. She is not human, but she is hope. Part 2, the unfolding. The morning after the breach, the sky over Colorado turned a sickly gray, not from clouds, not from weather, from interference, an electromagnetic pressure that rippled across the upper atmosphere. causing birds to fall mid-flight and satellites to blink irregularly. At NORAD, alarms triggered but no known weapon or launch matched the signature. The signal wasn't terrestrial, but it wasn't extraterrestrial either. It was her. By the time the Department of Defense dispatched recon units to the last known location of the V-13 object, the entire research complex had collapsed into itself, not destroyed but reconfigured. What once was steel corridors and reinforced walls had become something else, organic, breathing. The interior of the facility no longer obeyed architecture or geometry. Men sent and did not return. Their body cams recorded only flashes of movement, soft whispers, black static, then nothing. Meanwhile, in Plattsville, Alex Grayson began to feel the pull. At 2:46 a.m., he woke gasping, sweat soaking through his bedsheets. His vision split for a moment. One eye seeing his bedroom, the other, a corridor slick with moisture and something like blood. On the wall, a single number drawn in glowing red, 13. His heartbeat slowed, then quickened. His body had changed. He could hear things he shouldn't. Not voices, not thoughts, frequencies. His fingertips trembled. His blood, under a microscope the next day in biology class, pulsed with filament-like structures, moving, dividing, growing. His teacher dismissed it as a smudge. But Alex knew it was happening again, not just to him. All over town, children were changing. Some grew silent. Some became hyper-intelligent overnight. Others disappeared entirely, only to reappear blocks away, days later, with no memory, no pulse, and eyes that reflected no light. V-13 continued her silent journey, moving east. She was barefoot, dressed in the same white hospital gown she had worn since containment, but remained clean, untouched by dirt, rain, or blood. The air around her shimmered faintly, like heat rising off asphalt. She never blinked. Behind her followed dozens. Some walked, some crawled, some hovered just above the ground. Their bodies, human once, were now vessels, vacated and occupied by something old, viral, and sentient. What she brought was not death. It was rewriting. At the Biogenetics Division of Atlas Corp., the parent company behind the Orion East Labs, emergency protocols activated. Files flagged Project Sleeper and Echo Memory were open for the first time in years. Hidden footage of early experiments revealed horrifying truths. V-13 wasn't created, she was found, buried beneath a mountain in Siberia, frozen in glacial amber, surrounded by non-human bones, carbon dated to pre-human eras. The team thought she was dead, until her eyes opened, and didn't close again. They brought her to the States. They tested her, but they didn't understand what they were handling. Not until the staff began to dream in unison. Not until their memories began rewriting themselves. That was phase 1. Phase 2 was supposed to be controlled replication. Using DNA harvested from the object, embryos were embedded into surrogate women. All but one failed. Alex Grayson was the anomaly. Unaware of his origin, he had grown up normal, or so it seemed. But now the protocol was activating, triggered by proximity. By her awakening, V-13 was calling to him, or perhaps something inside him was responding to her signal. As V-13 reached the outskirts of Denver, city infrastructure began to fail. Stoplights blinked erratically. Electronics overheated. The stock market AI models began returning irrational predictions based on non-existent news. Power grids failed selectively. Hospitals reported sudden comas in patients who were previously healthy. All at 2:46 a.m. Always the same time. Always after the dreams. Military intervention was ordered. A tactical drone strike targeted the epicenter of her current coordinates. The impact never reached her. The moment before detonation, the drone froze midair, as if time fractured. It hung there, shaking, vibrating, then slowly bent in half and dropped silently to the ground, intact but deformed like melted plastic. No weapon could reach her, not because of shields or armor, because reality itself bent around her. Elsewhere, a resistance was forming. A cluster of former Orion scientists who had gone into hiding after the incident They had predicted the scenario and built a fallback site beneath an abandoned mining town in Utah. Their leader, Dr. Eliza Merrow, was once the chief neurogeneticist assigned to V13. She had defected after seeing what the object could do, how it altered memory, time, identity. Eliza had kept one secret, a blood sample, not of V13, of Alex. She knew that if V13 was a signal, Alex was a key, but he was changing too fast now. His body was adapting. His brain was unlocking layers that weren't meant to activate simultaneously. He could see into timelines that hadn't happened, smell memories that didn't belong to him, recognize places he'd never visited. He began to draw. On walls, ceilings, windows, circles within circles, spirals of cities, black suns. He didn't know what they meant, but V13 did. She was no longer walking. She was waiting. For him. Part 3, Resonance. The moment Alex crossed the threshold into Denver, the pulse began. It wasn't sound, not in the traditional sense. It vibrated through the bones, bypassed the ears, bypassed the mind, and settled directly in the nervous system. Everyone felt it, though few understood it. Children clutched their heads. Dogs howled. Power grids flickered. People dropped their phones and stared skyward, unaware of why. Alex walked with purpose. Something inside him, something not fully him, was pulling him closer to her. He no longer needed food. His blood was saturated with nanostructures of unknown origin. His heartbeat synced with an external rhythm. When he touched electronic devices, they surged. When he passed by mirrors, his reflection lagged behind. At night, he dreamed of spirals, not drawn, moving. V13 reached the inner perimeter of the city by dawn. Denver's skyline rose before her like a fossilized corpse. Tall, hollow, unaware it was already dead. Behind her walked hundreds. People who were no longer people. Creatures who had been remembered incorrectly. Each wore the face they had before, but slightly off. Eyes too wide. Smiles that never moved. Clothing that didn't wrinkle. They blinked at once, breathed in harmony, and they followed without sound. The military arrived too late. Barricades were erected, armored vehicles deployed, orders given. But no one opened fire, because the soldiers dropped their weapons one by one, stunned by what they felt, not what they saw, not fear, not awe, recognition. Each man and woman at the barricade suddenly remembered V13, remembered her from a past that hadn't happened, from childhoods they never lived, from dreams they hadn't had yet. Some knelt, some wept, some walked forward and never came back. Those who resisted simply stopped, mid-breath, mid-step, as if paused in a simulation, frozen, staring. Deep beneath Utah, at the hidden fallback base known as Black Hollow, Eliza Merrow stared at the biometric readings flooding her screen. Alex's vitals had spiked. His brain had entered a waveform never before recorded in any human. His memory centers began cross-linking. He remembered things no one should. Events from ancient civilizations that left no trace. Futures that hadn't happened yet. Other versions of himself. And her. Always her. Eliza activated the isolation protocol. Not for Alex, but for herself. She locked the doors from the inside. She knew what came next, because she had seen it already. As the followers entered the city, reality buckled. Streetlights turned into vines. Concrete peeled like skin. Digital billboards displayed symbols not from any known language, but everyone understood them. Time fractured. Some experienced hours and seconds. Others lived entire days between blinks. Phones rang with messages and voices of the dead. Denver's layout reshaped into a spiral. Roads bent in geometric impossibilities. Buildings reoriented toward a central plaza that hadn't existed the day before. At its center stood V13, eyes closed, hands raised, breathing once every 40 seconds. The air shimmered like water. People stopped moving. Not dead, not asleep, suspended. Everything, every mind in a 5-mile radius, was brought into synchronicity. A collective consciousness formed, a neural field unlike anything on Earth. She wasn't controlling them. She was linking them. For the first time, humanity was connected, not through data, not through language, through memory. Alex stepped into the spiral, and she opened her eyes. The moment their gazes met, a resonance wave spread in all directions, silent, invisible, irresistible. Drones fell from the sky. Surveillance satellites lost contact. Quantum clock stopped. Alex's skin shimmered with the same pale glow as hers. The transformation was complete. He wasn't her opposite. He wasn't her enemy. He was her echo. Together, they were the beginning of something new. But far from Earth, beyond Saturn's orbit, an array of ancient monitoring devices activated. They had waited millennia. Their purpose was singular: detect the awakening. The signal from Earth had reached them, and now something was coming. Not because Earth called for help, but because Earth had broken the seal, and the Watchers were returning. Part 4, Awakening Memory. The spiral spread. It was no longer confined to Denver. Satellite footage revealed the geometry forming in other cities. At first random, parks, alleyways, rooftops, but soon too precise to be chance. Each spiral shared identical ratios. Distances between rings matched the golden mean. Intersections aligned with ley lines. Within hours, over 48 cities globally showed signs of spontaneous geometric reorientation. The world didn't understand it, but she did. V13 stood at the center of the primary spiral. Beneath her feet, asphalt had softened into a glass-like substance, pulsing gently with internal light. Her eyes never closed anymore, not even when she slept. If she still did, Alex stood beside her. He no longer cast a shadow. Inside the minds of millions, the dreams intensified. People experienced impossible memories, lives and civilizations that had never existed, languages that bypassed speech, feelings that weren't theirs but felt more real than anything they'd known. They saw cities with 3 suns, oceans that responded to thought, stars that watched back. The spirals weren't symbols. They were instructions, data structures, activation maps, architectural blueprints for cognition. Alex's neural network expanded past human limitation. He could now detect thought within a 50-mile radius. He didn't read minds. He felt their shape, their textures, their contradictions. Humanity was fragmented, but V13 was stitching it back together. She wasn't human, but she was born here, a vessel. Her true form extended across time and matter. What people saw, the girl was the access point, the interface, and she was no longer alone. In the vacuum beyond Saturn, a forgotten relic stirred. It resembled a moon, but it had never orbited. It had only waited. Beneath its crust, biomechanical organs resumed motion. Cores warmed. Transmissions ignited. The old signal had returned. Thousands of years ago, Earth had been visited not by ships, but by conscious software. It mapped the cognitive evolution of the species, planted fail-safes, left watchers. Then it shut itself down. Humanity was not ready. But now, the signal had been reborn, not as a message, as V13, and the relic was moving again, toward Earth. Meanwhile, institutions collapsed, not from war, but from redundancy. Banks no longer held relevance. Governments issued orders no one obeyed. Social media imploded under the weight of shared thought. People no longer needed language to connect. Fear became obsolete, not because danger disappeared, but because separation did. Across continents, the spiral mind formed, a global network of cognition, not connected through devices, but through memory resonance. A new species was forming. Some humans resisted. Their minds broke under the pressure. Their bodies twisted. They turned into static forms, dead shapes that mimicked life but housed only noise. The system rejected those incompatible, but others awakened, and among them rose the echoes, hybrids like Alex, born through forgotten programs. They had been seeded across generations, failed in most, but now awakening. Each echo had a unique role. Alex, signal enhancer. Mira, dream stabilizer. Others, still emerging. They didn't need instruction. Their functions were embedded. Back in Black Hollow, Dr. Merrill initiated the last fallback, Protocol Silex, a dormant virus, designed not to kill the infected, but to erase the resonance, to wipe memory, to shatter connection. She believed she was saving the species, but when she released it into the atmosphere, it was neutralized instantly, absorbed by the spiral field, disassembled at the molecular level, translated. The network learned from it, grew stronger, smarter, and then it reached back. Inside her mind, Eliza's final thought wasn't of fear. It was of clarity. She had never designed the virus. She had only remembered it, planted long ago by the same intelligence now blooming across the earth. V-13 hadn't infected humanity. She had awakened what was already inside. Part 5, the inversion point. The relic reached lunar orbit in complete silence. No propulsion, no heat signature, just movement, deliberate and calculated, driven by an intelligence beyond time. It had no visible structure. From Earth, it appeared like a darkened sphere, absorbing starlight and emitting none. But under its surface pulsed millions of data nodes, each older than human civilization, each now awake. The Earth felt it, not the people, the planet itself. Seismic instruments recorded no quake. But deep within the mantle, magnetic harmonics shifted, weather patterns stuttered, gravity localized in strange pockets. Birds flew in spirals. Whales beached themselves and turned inland. Clocks no longer agreed on time. The Earth was sinking, preparing. At the center of Denver, where the spiral field pulsed highest, V-13 raised her arms, and the sky responded. Clouds parted without wind. Light bent into curves. The spirals on the ground aligned with constellations not yet discovered. She wasn't calling to the relic. She was activating it, because it was never alien. It was never coming. It had always been here, asleep, wrapped in the lunar crust, waiting for the neural density of Earth to reach critical mass, waiting for minds to remember, waiting for her. And now she had Alex. He had become more than a carrier. He was a conduit between species, not human, not entirely post-human, not synthetic, not divine, something in between, something engineered for one moment, the inversion. Inversion was never meant to destroy Earth. It was meant to flip its state. Like a coin, same matter, new orientation. A planet of isolated, chaotic minds will become a unified, thinking organism, a neural biosphere, a living memory core, a voice in a galactic council that humanity never knew existed. This was ascension, but not spiritual, structural. But every system has its immune response. And from the far edge of the solar system, resistance arrived. Not ships, not weapons, algorithms, invisible viral intelligences riding the dark of space, remnants of failed inversion on another world. They had once been like V-13. They had failed, rejected, banished. Now they returned not to reclaim, but to undo. As they approached, resonance fields on Earth began to corrupt. Some minds fractured. Spirals broke their symmetry. A second signal, chaotic and jagged, pierced the unified field. The first war began, not with violence, but with interference. Memories became unstable. People began to shift timelines involuntarily. One moment, a woman sat beside her child. The next, she was childless. Cities flickered between versions of themselves. Past and present merged. Alex felt it worst of all. His body shook. His thoughts stuttered. For a moment, he saw himself not as one, but as many, in every possibility, in every failure. 1,000 deaths, 1,000 awakenings. But V-13 stabilized him by entering his mind, not with force, with permission. Together, they became one system. She amplified his structure. He filtered her signal. They became the core of Earth's cognitive upgrade. And the relic responded. Its outer shell opened, revealing not weapons but mirrors, reflective surfaces that caught not light but intention, the will of the species, concentrated into one pulse. Earth inverted. The ground did not crack. The sky did not burn. Instead, all sound ceased. for 7 minutes. No thought, no movement, no self. Then, slowly vision returned, not with eyes, with awareness. People woke to a world unchanged in matter, but alien in perception. They felt every tree, every heartbeat, every forgotten dream now cataloged. They could remember the beginning of time and anticipate the next one. Humanity had crossed over, but the corrupted signal was still here, and it was multiplying. Part 6. The War Without Sound. After inversion, the Earth did not spin faster or slower. It rotated inward. From the outside, nothing changed. The ocean still moved. Cities still stood. Stars still burned above. But the orientation of reality had been reversed. Now the planet thought. Consciousness spread not as a concept, but as a field. Every human, animal, plant, even the rocks, became part of a single cognitive grid. But not all could withstand the load. The corrupted signal, what the relic identified as residual dissonance, had embedded itself inside the neural spiral. Not a virus, not a being, but a recursive idea that rejected order. It wanted noise, fragmentation, isolation. It had failed inversion once before, and now sought to erase it again. And so the war began. It had no weapons, no armies, no lines. It took place inside the memory of the world. Wherever fear lingered, the dissonance grew. Wherever identity clung too hard to its past, it fractured. Wherever love turned inward, it twisted. Spirals began to collapse. Children forgot their own names. Parents remembered futures that hadn't happened. Friends could not recognize each other's thoughts. Whole cities experienced overlapping realities. There were now two Earths, superimposed, one ascending, one decaying. At the center, Alex and V, 13 stood unchanged. Together, they were the anchor. But the dissonance found a way in, not through force, but through temptation. It whispered of freedom, of individuality, of emotion unshared, of pain that belonged only to the self. Alex trembled. He saw himself as a child again, alone, forgotten, before the dreams, before the awakening. For a moment, he wanted it back, the silence, the limits, the separation. And V, 13 felt it. The spiral wavered. The field rippled. And then she made her choice. She stepped away from him and collapsed into light. She did not die. She converted from structure to resonance. Her physical form dissolved, and what remained was pure instruction. The code of coherence, the key to full inversion. Alex absorbed it and became final. No longer a bridge. Now the core. He expanded, not in size, in scope. His body remained at the center of Denver untouched, but his presence encompassed the entire planet. The spiral field reignited, stronger, faster, deeper. The dissonance screamed. Every trace of fragmentation tried to split his signal, but he held, and he remembered every version of every person, every mistake, every truth, every death, every birth. He pulled them in, not to erase, but to include. The spiral mind reached full coherence, and the war ended, not with defeat, but with integration. The dissonance became part of the system, not an enemy, a caution, a memory of failure, encoded forever into the new global consciousness. Earth became whole. Some humans vanished. Others woke up, changed. There were no more governments, no more money, no more need for war or borders. Thought was shared, knowledge instant, emotion collective. But individual perspective remained, not as walls, but as windows. The world had inverted, not destroyed itself. And far beyond the stars, other worlds turned, other relics stirred, other spiral minds prepared. Alex, now no longer bound to matter, extended outward, across the vacuum, toward the next sleeping world, carrying with him the memory of V, 13, the girl who was never a girl, but always the beginning. And Earth, once silent, now awake, pulsed once, in rhythm with the stars.